Hello Tech Pros, episode 128.
For sure, just clarify it and know exactly why you're working on that thing and what it's going to do for you over the next year, 2 years, 3 years.
Welcome to the podcast where I chat with professionals who are getting the job done using technology 7 days a week. Each week we start with Motivation Monday. Tuesday is about productivity, Wednesday, leadership, Thursday, technology, Friday, people and communication, Saturday, entrepreneurship, and Sunday, being unplugged. All right, let's get started. Hello, Tech Pros. This is Chad Bostic, and I'm excited to introduce our featured guest today, Nick Snapp. Happy Tuesday, Nick.
Happy Tuesday, Chad, man. It feels like a Tuesday, doesn't it?
It does. It actually does feel like a Tuesday today.
I'm happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Nick Snapp, in an era where overtime is expected and overwhelm is normal. Sorry, I got something stuck on the tip of my tongue there. Yes, overtime is expected and overwhelm is normal. Nick Snapp, productivity strategist and podcaster, combines productivity with purpose for entrepreneurial moms and dads, yay, who want their time back. We do, please. He is the owner of Inspire Me Solutions, providing innovative coaching, training, and consulting services for entrepreneurs and wantrepreneurs, and is the host of the Make It Snappy Productivity Show podcast. Nick has a background in engineering, project management, and process improvement. Nick, I love this idea of, regardless of if you have a 9-to-5 job or if you're working from home, right? But really focusing on moms and dads who have so much going on between ice skating and baseball practice and, Little League and everything that's going on, and the people that's most important in their lives, but, figure out how to get our lives back and get that productivity.
That's what it's all about, Chad, man. I mean, we lose sight of that so easily. And if we lose sight of our vision, our family, what's important to our lives, then we're not really being productive, are we?
No, we're not. I mean, sometimes we think about, or I have thought about efficiencies, like, oh my gosh, I need to get X number more units done, or, X number more podcasts, or, more meetings done at work, or more code cranked out, on my freelancing, or whatever it is. But really it's like, dude, I need to prioritize what's going on. And this little baby is now not a baby, it's a toddler. Whoops, she's in kindergarten. Whoops, now she's in first grade. Time's slipping by, and it doesn't matter how much work I put into work, right? It's really about prioritizing. For me, it's about prioritizing those special moments. And yes, I want to make money. I want to be productive. I want to have a good, healthy career. But I want to do so in a focused, positive manner that allows me to spend more time with my family.
Yeah, that's what's up, man. I mean, what are we doing all this for? I always start there with everybody that I talk to. What are you doing it for? And then once we really clarify that vision is for your family, how you want to spend your time, then we can use productivity to make that happen. So it's like a tool. That's the way I look at it.
Awesome. So let's talk about maybe backtrack a little bit to a time when you struggled in this area. So on Productivity Tuesday here on Hello Tech Pros, we like to keep it real and recognize that everybody's human, and we all have these moments either in our personal life or career or whatever, a mix of both, right? Because they overlap so many times, where you're just not feeling very productive. Maybe it's a team you're on and the entire team's not getting things done as fast as everybody wanted, or just you personally were struggling with just getting all of Nick's things done. So tell us that personal story of the time, Nick, where you were unproductive, and then we'll get into what changes did you make?
Absolutely. And I think one of the reasons I'm pretty good at helping people with their productivity is because it's not a natural thing for me at all. It is from my wife. She's just been productive. It feels like her entire life, and she'll come in here and she'll bang it out, and it's the right thing, and she knows exactly, she's focused and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't come natural for me. I thought that I had a really great productivity game. A little over a year ago, I took my leap into entrepreneurship full time, and I was almost on autopilot in the corporate world. So I've been working in corporate for 14 years, and I didn't really have to do all that much to get my job done, and do an exceedingly good job, at that. So when it came to taking that leap, I put together a 40-page business plan. I was ready to go. And it was my first day as a full-time entrepreneur. And Chad, I must have sat there and looked at my laptop for like, it felt like a half an hour. I didn't even know where to start. It was completely different mindset. And it was unexpected. So I had a plan for what I wanted to do with the business and, how I was going to, like, what kind of business I was going to do and who I was going to reach out to and all that kind of stuff. But the tactics and the process and systems, all that stuff that I had developed when I was in corporate, I didn't do any of that. And I don't know if I just didn't think about it or I expected that it would just naturally come to me because now this is my time, because I've been side hustling for a really long time. But there was something about having that full-time responsibility that just froze me. So I really had to rethink everything that I did, because the big, I guess, game changer or the mindset shift is the accountability. That was the biggest change for me. Is when I'm in corporate, I know exactly what I need to do. And once I know that, I can do it. I can develop the systems and processes necessary for me to go ahead and knock it out of the park. In entrepreneurship, you don't know what's going to work. So a lot of times at least especially in the onset, you're kind of trying to figure out what works, testing things, developing minimum viable products and services and stuff that might work. And I didn't even know really where to start with that. It was very strange. So I spent a lot of time thinking about what processes can I develop to make myself more effective. And it just really comes for me, it's what tasks am I doing? Why am I doing it? And then how can I do it most efficiently? So it starts with just processing all that out. Step 1, step 2, step 3, and really looking at it and figuring out, is this working? Is it not? And testing those systems. So it's been a struggle. It took me a good, probably about 4 or 5 months where I felt like I was, okay, now I'm finally hitting this stride as an entrepreneur. And I had a coach myself that helped me push out of that a little bit too. At least at first it was a lot of mindset issues that I was dealing with. So that was my, one of many stories about being unproductive.
So what about this lack of accountability or accountability partners, or the responsibilities all on you, right? Because you were doing this stuff in a side hustle manner, right? You had your 9-to-5 job, and then you were doing a little bit of dabbling into the side hustle, into the entrepreneurship, but then you put a lot of thought and effort into the 40-page plan, right? Of all the things that you wanted to get done. So why do you think your brain kind of locked up there and you didn't know exactly what step 1 was? Did you not have that already documented in the plan, or was it just like, okay?
It was too high level.
What was the plan?
It was way too high level. It was kind of the types of customers I want to reach, the types of clients I wanted to reach. Well, when I first started my business, Chad, it was going to be a Lean Six Sigma business. I was going to go into different factories and organizations and help them get their numbers up. And I had established a bunch of relationships before I left corporate that gave me a pretty good indication that somebody would be willing to hire me. There are several people that were willing to hire me. So that was all well and good. And it was one of those things where I had so many different things that I could do, but I didn't really know what I should do. And I just froze. So I think it was just too many choices. And from an accountability perspective, since I was the only one holding myself accountable, that's where I had the brain fart per se. I didn't know any entrepreneurs either when I first started. I was the only one. All my friends were working in corporate. I probably knew maybe like a extended once removed uncle or something that was an entrepreneur, but I just wasn't in that world. So one of the first pieces of recognition that I guess I got, and my wife was one of the first persons that recognized the need for it, is, look, you need to go figure out who else is out there doing this entrepreneurial thing and learn from them. So I took a couple big steps, joined an organization here in Tampa, and I got a coach that knew about entrepreneurship. And I just started, as I've been reading and all that kind of stuff, like intellectually, I read a whole bunch of books and understood what to do to set up certain businesses and stuff. But the big game changer is the mindset change. That's the thing I just underappreciate, because I'm an engineer, Chad, man. I mean, I don't think about that kind of stuff. I'm just data driven. I mean, I feel like I'm pretty well adept at the soft skills. I think that's what made me successful in corporate, but it's not a natural thing for me to really think about things bigger and realizing that I was holding myself back and limiting myself, all that kind of stuff. So there was a big mindset piece that I had to learn.
Nick, I can so relate to that feeling of being overwhelmed, because I've gone through the same thing, but for years I did not step out because I could never decide what I wanted to do. Like, okay, I'm not hands-on software development anymore, but I used to do a lot of hands-on software development. That's how I kind of grew up throughout my career. And then I moved into IT management, and so I can definitely put teams together. I can get a lot of people focused on whatever the priority is. We can dive down into requirements and really get to the root of the matter that the client or whoever is asking for. I'm not really a business savvy guy, right? Never been on that business side of like making making the revenue. It's always just like, okay, requirements are coming in, customers are coming in, now deal with it. So okay, I can do blogging, I can do podcasting, I can build apps, I can build teams of people who build apps, I can do software as a service, I can do consulting, I can do coaching, I can do so many different things. What the heck do I do? And so it's just kind of. But for me, I didn't put a plan together and then step out. I struggled with this sitting at my desk, right, sitting at my cube, or worse, like in the drive and the commute back and forth to work, thinking, okay, I'm actually pretty good at several different things. What is the thing that I can do so I don't have to make this commute anymore?
Right. Yeah, we all kind of go through that. I think we just fool ourselves into thinking we have this perfect idea. And I think the big shift for me was like, I'm just going to pick something and make it work. And for me, I was going to do Lean Six Sigma studies. I knew how to make things better and improve process. And that's just where I started. But part of me knew that there was something bigger that I wanted to do and really do things that could help people, not just organizations. So I think that the big thing with entrepreneurship that a lot of people in corporate don't think about is you really kind of got to figure out how it's going to go along the way. And as a project manager, that's all I do is plan. That's like my job. So it is a counterintuitive thing for me. And it's been a huge lesson learned. So yeah, you got to roll with it. You got to let it flow.
So when was the time, did you have like an aha moment where you're like, okay, this Lean Six Sigma stuff is not my jam. It's not the thing that I'm super, super passionate about. And I want to shift into this specific direction, into productivity and helping moms and dads? Or were there many steps along the journey and many trial and error of things that you experimented with?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chad. Actually, it happened really, really quick. So I got work 3 days after I quit. I got work. I went from Tampa to Los Angeles, and I found some work for a credit card manufacturing facility to help them get their numbers up. There was an organization that had already done a study, and they needed somebody to go and actually implement their recommendations, make it happen. And it was great work. I really enjoyed it. But it took me away from my family for 4 weeks. And I was sitting there in LA loving, obviously, the weather, and the experience was awesome. And I hadn't been away from my family and my kids. It was kind of a nice break from, the whole routine at home. But after about a week and a half, it got really, really old super quick. And I looked at my life the next 10 years and I said, this is not what I signed up for. Entrepreneurship's awesome. Having the freedom and autonomy and stuff is great, but I'm not going to do this long term. So that's when I, by the grace of God, found a coach. And he helped me work through that process of, okay, what am I really good at? What have I known to knock out of the park with my corporate career, and just the way that I operate and the way that I think? Productivity just kept on bubbling up to the surface. I never called it productivity. I'd always thought of it as like effectiveness. Like, I feel like I'm an effectiveness coach, but then you got to kind of explain it. So productivity was the closest way to describe it. But even that, Chad, is like, you kind of got to explain, like I did, I think earlier when we started talking about it, is just productivity for me is not checking things off the list. We were talking about it before we started recording. It's about getting the right things done, using your best time to work on your best activities. And that, I guess productivity was the best way that I could describe what I do, but I really help people move the needle forward and then move it forward efficiently once they figure out exactly what it is that they want to do. And I love that. I love that process. So yeah, that was my aha moment. I just can't be away from my family. I got to find a location independent business.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of a sudden it was like, okay, priorities in check. My family comes first. I gotta be there for them, and I gotta help them. And so you talked to this coach, and you got some ideas, and really narrowed down of like describing, like taking Nick, all the like bubble cloud of all the different ideas, right, and distilling it down into the 1 or 2, 3 things that are like really exemplifies what you do and how you work, and the things that are a priority in your life is about working on the things that are priority, right? And so it's
That's right.
helping everybody identify those priorities. So what was it like when you were first like switching into actually helping other people? Did people like get your idea as soon as you started changing your message from, okay, Lean Six Sigma to productivity? Did people go, oh my gosh, exactly, Nick, that's what you should have been doing years ago? Or was there like a big marketing campaign to try to like get people aware that this is a problem in their lives?
Yeah, that's a really good question too. It was when I first started doing, so what I do is I do help coach and help people through the process. So when I first started thinking, I'm like, I love this Lean Six Sigma, like the process stuff. So how can I translate that to personal effectiveness and help people that are struggling with it? Because I hadn't seen a lot of the like Lean Six Sigma and the processes of removing defects and basically looking at your bottlenecks in your process, all that kind of stuff. I hadn't seen anybody really apply that to just the solopreneur or the person that's just trying to plug along and be effective for themselves. So I started looking at that and figuring out how can I apply those skills. And my coach challenged me. He said, well, it sounds like you want to be a coach. And I thought, what does that even mean? What do you mean coach? I'm like, I think a basketball coach or whatever.
Right.
But he challenged me to just go out there and put myself out there and start talking to people. So that's what I did. I said, hey, look, I'm just testing this coaching thing out. And I probably had 20 or 30 conversations over 6 weeks. And I really fell in love with it. And I was really intimidating because I put myself out there looking for the side hustler because I knew how to deal with a side hustler. I felt like, okay, I can help these people create time to work on their side hustle.
Okay.
Like I was all about how do you make more time? How do you look at the routine and cut out the waste? That was my thing. And I found it really hard to find side hustlers that cared, like enough
Really?
to want to invest. Well, I shouldn't say that. Let me take a step back. I guess my first revision was to work with people that wanted their time back. They just were working in corporate and they were just tired of working late hours and they wanted to spend more time with their family. I was like, I can help you get your time back. Mm-hmm. That was the party that the people that didn't care to invest because they're just doing their job, and if their company was paying for it, that's fine. But I didn't want to help their company get their people more efficient. I want to help the people get their time back. This hacking corporate concept that I've been talking about. So those people didn't care. Then I went on to the side hustler, and they did care. I correct myself. I spoke incorrectly, but they actually did care. But it was harder to find those people, at least initially. So when I put myself out there to do free coaching, the majority of the people that responded were entrepreneurs, and that intimidated the heck out of me, man, because I'd only been an entrepreneur for like 3 months. I'm like, what do you mean? I can't help you. But as I got into it, I realized the way that I think as an engineer and a process guy really was different. And the fact that I put so much focus on my family and I saw a direct link to how I can help people get more productive at home in conjunction with what they're trying to do with their business, I felt like I added the value, and I just fell in love with the process of helping those kind of people.
So
does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. So these folks who maybe they are side hustlers, they're entrepreneurs, right? They don't want to go back to corporate, or they have the corporate thing, but they know like the long-term vision is they can't see themselves doing this for another 10 years, right? And they want to move out and take the leap like you and I have taken the leap, right? And now Nick's rocking and rolling. He's being very successful. He's got all this stuff going on. What would be like the first step, right? That you would say, okay, guy or gal, this is what you need to do. Like, don't make the same mistake that Nick made and put this 40-page high-level requirements document together, this business plan together, and then it's not really doesn't really fit with your mission and values, right? Your personal priorities. What would you say that person needs to do before they really start taking a look at making that leap?
Answer your why, 100%. You got to know why you want to do what you're doing, and it can't be driven just because you don't want to work for the man. That was my problem initially. I just want to get away from the man. Mm-hmm. And as I really looked inside and asked myself, well, why is that so important? Why do I want to have the control and the freedom and all that kind of stuff? Nothing really happened with my business until I took the focus away from myself and looked more to how I can serve and how I can make a bigger impact. So if you were to ask yourself the question, if I had all the money, if that wasn't an issue, I have all the money in the world, and this is kind of where I start the conversations when I start working with people, it's what would you do with their time? if money wasn't an issue anymore, how would you spend it? And that pretty quickly starts clarifying, like, what are people doing all this for? Like, why do they want to make all this money and stuff? And what's really important to them? So yeah, answering that question, it's not an easy question to answer. You'd think it would be. Like I had a lot of trouble answering that question. If I could do anything that I want, how would I spend my time? It's really, really tough.
It's hard to imagine, right?
Sure.
I mean, coming from, my family was dirt poor. We live way out in the country, literally on dirt that was hard to grow anything on. And, we sacrificed and my stepdad went back to college and got a degree and, started being successful and stuff, but it was a grind. It was work. And I saw that, okay, if you work really, really hard for somebody else, then there's a payoff. Like they will pay you more and more, and then you'll have more opportunities open up to you. You'll have more access to the things or the experiences or the whatever that you're looking for. So for me, it was easy to buy into the corporate lifestyle because it was just, okay, the more I study, the more I learn, the more I work hard and serve somebody else in their business, like the more payoff there will be for me, and I will get raises and promotions or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But to shift and say, okay, if money was not an option because I'm just loaded, because I won the lottery or whatever, something happened and money is no longer a need, it's just there, right? Then how would I spend my time? It's like, I don't know. I'd play some PlayStation games, but that's not like my life, right? What would I do? So how do people like get in touch with their inner self and really, really understand themselves enough to be able to answer that question?
Oh man, you're asking an engineer to climb inside somebody's head.
We're getting really, really woo-woo here.
No, but that's kind of a lot of the stuff that I kind of get into is the psychology of it. And I just get really curious and keep asking why over and over and over again. So so now we'll really get into like the Lean Six Sigma process, the 5 whys. It's if there's a problem and somebody gives you an answer, you ask why 5 times, and eventually you get down to what really the answer is. So just kind of off the cuff, I guess we could talk about some examples. So I'll just put myself out there. So I wanted to move my family international and give my kids a second language experience. So my wife used to always ask me why, and I'd be like, well, that's just it's important. I want to go out there, and I'm a Christian, so I'm like, I want to go out there and I want to serve the God, and I want to give my kids a really unique experience, something they'd never have anywhere else in the world, and I'll be a unique family and do our thing. And she'd, okay, well, why do you want that for your family? Why is that important? I'm like, well, okay, well, in the States here, everybody's just obsessed with celebrities. I can't stand that. I feel like the priorities are all wrong, just focused on the wrong things. And we need to get away from that and give the kids a different experience. She go, well, why? She asked me again, well, why can't you do that here? Why can't you be a good example here? It's like, yeah, that's one way. Well, I could, but it's hard because of all the pressure in the States and, all that kind of stuff. So, well, why is it hard? And she'll say something like, well, this is pretty much how the conversation went, really, Chad. And she'll say, well, why is it hard? It's because it's not your priority. So she's kind of coaching me through this process. Like, it's just, you say it's hard, but you're not making that a priority. Why aren't you making it a priority? Because I'm working too much in this corporate job. I don't have time to spend with my family. Okay. Now you start translating that to the real reasons where, like, okay, can you envision your life being different with your own career and your own business, I should say, outside of corporate? So then that kind of, for me, that was the bridge, that the focus isn't just about me and escaping and having this international experience and all that kind of stuff. It's more about, how do I spend more time with my family, because I have toddlers at home and they're getting older by the second, obviously, and I don't want to miss that. And here I am waking up at 5 a.m, out of the house by 5:20, and sometimes back at 7:30, sometimes 8. And that's just not, it's fine, but I didn't want fine. I wanted greatness for my family. So I think just getting into that process of just asking yourself over and over again, like, why, until you come up with an answer that you believe for yourself, So
What I love about this, Nick, is first of all that you listen to your wife.
it wasn't always easy, man.
It's tough to do. Trust me. I struggle. The struggle is real. So I feel for you there. But you actually listen to your wife, and she used your process, your Six Sigma lean process, like to reverse engineer you and to get the thing out of you that you were struggling to get out of yourself. And now you take that lesson and you really distilled it down into, okay, here's Nick's why. Here's exactly why he wants to, move out of the country. And here's how why he wants to raise his kids the way he wants to. And here's why he wants to leave corporate is because of all these things tied together. And it was because your wife went through this process of asking you these questions and really holding you accountable to your answers and not just pushing you on your answers, right? Not just like taking them at face value. And so now you're using the same process or some similar process, right, to help other people do the same thing for their whys and their business and their side hustles and their entrepreneurship journey. So Nick, in just a moment, I want to ask you about like what's next, right? How do we continue this further, and what are the big obstacles past the why that are going to get in people's way if they let them when they're going through this journey? But first, we're going to take a quick break and thank our sponsors. This episode of Hello Tech Pros is sponsored by Minio Cloud Storage. Minio is a cloud object storage server for developers and DevOps written in Go. The Go programming language is the emerging language of choice for modern cloud infrastructure projects, and it allows Minio to be highly concurrent and lightweight. Minio is Amazon S3 compatible, built with microstorage architecture in mind, but at its heart, Minio is simple, scalable, and supported by a passionate developer and user community. In episode 89 of Hello Tech Pros, I talked with A.B. Periasamy, one of the founders of Minio, about the importance of community support and recruiting software developers who are as passionate about their product's code as artists are of their art. Check out that episode at hellotechpros.com/89 and check out Minio Cloud Storage at minio.io. That's minio.io. Okay, we're back with Nick Snapp, productivity strategist and podcaster from the Make It Snappy Productivity Show podcast. And Nick really shared with us some awesome steps on how he discovered his why. And I say why with like a capital W, capital H, capital Y, the big why this stuff is so important to him, why he wanted to be an entrepreneur, why he wanted to focus on productivity, why he wants to eventually take his kids to live in other parts of the world, to give them more experiences and different culture and stuff like that. And that experience, Nick, of your wife asking you these questions sounds like it led very much into like your history with Six Sigma and your history with breaking down the requirements for a project and stuff like that, but also the way that you carry that forward into helping your clients. So as you help a client through discovering their why and determining what their passion is and what they really need to be focused on, what their priorities really are, like what are the next like big obstacles that they're likely to face? Is it something more mindset again, or is it tools and time and other stuff? What gets in the way of people once they identify their why and start going after it?
Yeah, I want to answer that question. I want to touch on one quick thing, though, about just my why that I didn't want to breeze over. I made it sound like it happened really quick with my wife asking these questions and that I'm a great husband and I actually listened to her. But no, it took me like 5 years, Chad. It really literally took me 5 years to answer those questions because I was convinced that I knew my why and I was really easy to justify certain thoughts and intentions, that kind of thing. And it wasn't until I finally gave up control that I came to the conclusions that were true. So I just wanted to preface that if you're struggling with this and you're grinding and you feel like you're, not being forthcoming with yourself or your spouse or whatever, it's a natural thing. It's a normal thing, I should say. But yeah, after you get to clarity on why you want to do what you want to do and you believe your answer, obviously, the next big obstacles are the agreements that you need to make with the people in your life to support that. And one of the biggest lessons learned for me was how foundational the home support network is on your success as an entrepreneur. If things aren't right at home, yeah, you will make success. You can be successful and move things forward, but the results are just exponentially greater if you have your life partner and your family in your corner, like just 100%. So being very, very clear on exactly what you need to do, why you need to do it. They need to understand your why, like tactically even. Well, you need to work for these particular hours from you need to get up at 5:30 to do this activity, or you need to end your workday at a certain time, or you have a meeting at a certain time, or whatever it might be. Getting them on board with aligning that with your vision for how you want to spend your time as a family and knowing how everything feeds into each other is critical and so overlooked, right? Like we're all doing this for a reason. And I'm getting back into the why thing, but it's not just to make money. And if your family understands what you want to do with that money once it's made, and they can get behind it and they believe that you have a fair shot at getting that, not necessarily like in your business and working on it, but just high level understand, okay, this is what you're working on, this is why, and this is what it's going to get to and how soon and all that kind of stuff is fundamental. So what kind of agreements need to be made? I'll give you like a real tactical example is I work at home. I'm in an office. Office has a door. Thankfully, a lot of people's home offices don't have a door, but it does. And my wife used to come in and just barge in and to get like, I don't know, some sort of supply or to grab something off the printer or whatever. And it was super, super distracting, you know? And like, it was fine. It was a little example, but it was finally like, look, if you need something from me, there's other ways that we could do this or maybe do like she knocks now, which is phenomenal. She never used to do that. But even so, like if I had a call like this one, I'm getting on this podcast now. It's 3 p.m. my time. I told my wife before I got on, I said, look, I'm on this call from 3 to 4 and I just can't be interrupted. You know, I can't be distracted. This is important. This is important for everything we have going on. And we made that agreement up front. And she said, okay, well, I'm going to go off and take the kids somewhere. You know, like that's that sort of thing that it's the communication that needs to be made so that you don't have those stumbling blocks a long time. And I don't want to like just keep on rambling, but one of the really, really cool ways that we've implemented a system that works is to have a weekly review. And we did it today, as a matter of fact. We did it over lunch. And it's a really good time to have a weekly review with your life partner to just, if anything, Chad, just looking at your calendars together and making sure that you're moving things around to feed each other's or fit each other's mutual schedules is one thing that saves so much confusion and a whole heck of a lot of arguments in the future. Because the last thing you want to do, for me, I have 3 boys at home, is spring like a last minute event. You know, I got to be somewhere at 6. Sorry, you're going to have to fend for yourself for dinner and taking care of these 3 kids, you know. So that's the sort of thing that's really, really been helpful. What kind of agreements can you make up front?
Man, I love the fact that these are the important tips that you're throwing out, Nick. It's the communication with the life partner, right? It's the communication with the family. It's making sure everybody's priorities are aligned. Because so many times when we talk about productivity, when we talk about, you know, how to get more hours in the day, it really comes down to, well, just like quick little hacks, like use Evernote for this, use, you know, if this then that for that, right? And a little bitty things that can save a 5-minute here or a 2-hour there. And those are great. I love those hacks. I love those advice. And it's all wonderful. But what you're saying is it's almost like to me right now, we don't have an audience. It's like you are coaching me on the stuff that I'm literally going through this week, right? Of my wife and I trying to sync up calendars and what's the right tool, right? She's very much a like pen and paper or a printed out calendar up on the wall, and I'm much more digital and everything's in Google, right? Or you know, we have things going on. We have my daughter's having her back to school thing next week that we have to go meet the teacher and all this kind of stuff. And I could say, well, you know, business is really important. I need to like do some more interviews. I need to do some more social media. I need to, you know, talk to some potential clients, blah, 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 because that stuff's important. But really, that stuff's not important. At the end of the day, like my daughter's going to school for the first time. This will be the first time she ever goes to first grade, right? You can't get
Congratulations.
that back. Thank you. You can't ever get that back. You can never
No.
get that time back and like make it up later. There will be never ever a time where I can make that up later. So, you know, I have to be very, very clear about my goals of why I want to do this podcast, why I want to, you know, not have a corporate job, which is very similar to yours, is because I want to make a difference in my family's life. I want to make a difference in my listeners' life. But all said and done, like my wife, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my daughter are more important than anything that I'm doing here on the microphone. Right.
Absolutely.
And it's just, I just want to say thanks. Thanks for,
Oh man.
thanks
Yeah, you're
thanks for
welcome.
sharing all this with me, because it's really, really inspiring to me.
Thanks, man. I think I don't want to minimize the productivity hacks because I get into that kind of stuff too. But a lot of times it does weigh you down. You know, when at the end of the day, you just really need to have the conversation. You can do it however you want to. I mean, Mike Vardy says it all the time, and I look up to the guy. He says you got to put the personal into personal productivity, and I believe in that wholeheartedly. I think one of the things that helps me see it like this is when I was in project management and managing, you know, $100 million capital projects. It's not a small, you know, thing to do.
Yeah.
You have all kinds of stakeholders who care about this project, but they all have different agendas. And the hardest part about the project, I like 100-fold, the hardest part, or in comparison to all the different things you need to do in the project, the 5 different phases. You know, you got to initiate it, you got to plan it, execute it, monitor and control it, and then close it out properly. Well, the hardest part is the initiation in agreeing on what is the thing you're trying to solve. Like, what's the problem statement? You know, because what happens, and what happened to me as a project manager so many times, is I go off in this direction and I already kind of have the answer to the problem that I think I'm solving, whereas I'm not really solving the real problem, you know. And you'll get down like 6 months down the road and you'll spend $100,000, $200,000 on engineering drawings or something, and then somebody will come in, some bright individual will come into like your project meeting that you having meetings for 6 months and they've never been there, and all of a sudden they'll come into the room and they'll ask this question and they'll say, why are we doing this? All we need to do is that, as far as what we're trying to solve. Like, how is this solving our problem? And you put 6 months of work into it and it doesn't amount to anything. The project gets canceled, put on hold, whatever, and you're sort of like a useless entity at that time. So I've experienced that a couple times, and it really stings. So I put so much emphasis on the problem or opportunity statement, getting everybody aligned around that, and then you talk about the solution. So I do the same thing with clients, Chad. It's like, you can't, like, the clients will come to me, I need to develop systems and processes to do whatever. I'm like, great. Well, how are those systems and processes going to help you achieve what you want to do? Well, I don't know. Well, what do you want to do? What do you mean what I want to do? No, like what do you want to accomplish here? And how quickly do you want to accomplish it? And like, just digging in. It's really a simple process, but like, you just can't be productive. You cannot use productivity if you don't know what you're trying to solve. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, coming from software development background and been on many, many of those projects where sometimes, unfortunately, we were brought in. You know, of course, you don't want to bring in a team of 20 engineers the first day on the inception of the project, right? You want to think things through. But so many times we were brought in during the appropriate time for the development team to be brought in, and we're looking at the requirements going, I don't understand. What is the problem that we're trying to solve? and unfortunately, many times what we get from management is, look, you guys are not implementing unit testing well enough. You're not implementing the latest and greatest features from whatever. Pick your platform of choice, right? You need to learn or not learn the latest and greatest technology. You need to stick with what we know and what we can support. And so many times we're having these conversations and arguments and discussions about how to build the thing the right way, but instead of going back and looking at, are we building the right thing?
Right. Yeah. It takes discipline to do that. And it's scary to ask those kind of questions because you don't want to think about it. You don't want to think that you're wrong either, you know, because then you got to own it. And that's tough to do.
It's tough to do. Nick, I want to own the clock and the responsibility to hold myself accountable to getting you back to your wife and your child, or children. But before we go, can you share any parting words of wisdom for our audience, the best way that we can connect with you, and then we'll say goodbye?
Definitely. Well, I think that there's power in accountability. From everything that we do, the thing I learned the most is just figure out creative ways to hold yourself accountable, especially if you're an entrepreneur. Get with like-minded individuals, obviously be a mastermind or coach, or even just for me, Chad, I put myself out there publicly, like on social media, and I say I'm going to do something. And just that act of putting myself out there and saying I'm going to do it helps me follow through, but find some sort of creative way to hold yourself accountable to following through on the thing. But the thing, for sure, just clarify it and know exactly why you're working on that thing and what it's going to do for you over the next year, 2 years, 3 years. So I always have that vision very, very crystal clear. So that's my parting words of wisdom. The other thing, I just, from just a pure productivity hack perspective, man, it's so easy to do, but for whatever reason we don't do it. Right now, take your phone, take all the notifications and just disable them and only carve out specific time to get on that thing and do what you need to do, but turn off the notifications because your productivity will just skyrocket if you can shut it all down, even text messages, shut it all down and stop looking at it or put it into a drawer or whatever you got to do to stop pulling your attention in a million different directions. Yeah. But if people want to get a hold of me, my name is Nick Snapp. Podcast, as you said, it's the Make It Snappy Productivity Show. You know, people have been making a brand out of my name my entire life, Chad, and I finally am doing something about it. So everything I do is Snapp. Even my coaching programs now are Snapp. It's like Snap Fast, Snap Forward, Make It Snappy. It's all Snapp. But my website is makeitsnappyshow.com. Or if you want to send me an email, nick at makeitsnappyshow.com. And I'm at Twitter it's at The Snappy Show.
Nick, thank you so much for joining me on Hello Tech Pros today. And I say this to every guest, and I mean it to every guest, but for this particular episode, thank you for helping me with the things that I need to take a hard look at, right? I need to go through this process, and I've done it at a 1 or 2 level, but ask it over and over and over again to get really, really deep, like 5-6 layers deep, to understand, why am I doing this? I know why I'm doing it because I love it. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't love it. But really, at the end of the day, like, what is all this for? I appreciate you, inspiring me to pull that out of myself. So thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, you're welcome. It's been a pleasure, Chad. Thanks so much for having me, man.
You bet. Tech Pros, if you are struggling with the things in your life, whether you have a 9-to-5 job or whether you're a freelancer or whether you are doing an entrepreneurship thing, and you're struggling with not understanding why you're not getting to where you want to go, maybe it's because you don't know where you want to go. So take a look at this process that Nick has talked about. Go take a look at his show. Go read his blog articles and listen to his episodes. That's what I'm going to be doing after the show, to really figure out, like, what is your why? Really, really understand what is your why. And if you already have it, if you already know it, go take another look and try to get one more layer deeper to understand yourself and understand your why, so that you can focus on the things that are most important and cut out all the other distractors. You've been listening to Nick Snapp, and I'm Chad Bostic. And until next time, take care. The show notes page for this episode can be found at hellotechpros.com/128. Do you use Slack for team communication? Join the Hello Tech Pros Slack channel at hellotechpros.com/Slack. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, subscribe to this channel, and check back tomorrow. This has been Productivity Tuesday, but tomorrow my featured guest and I are talking about leadership. Thursday, technology. Friday, people in communication. Saturday, entrepreneurship. Sunday, being unplugged. Monday, motivation. And then we do it all over again next Tuesday for productivity. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.